Hi, this is Tom Parmalee with CemeteryVision.com. Joining me today is Micah Brown, the founder and CEO of Broylman Memorial Group, which is a growing force in the cemetery profession. Thanks so much for joining me, Micah.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be a part of it, Tom. I appreciate it.
Now, I'm always interested in how people make their way to the cemetery profession because you have folks from all walks of life in this business. And you, in particular, have a really interesting story. If I understand correctly, you used to be a professional fisherman. Tell
I
me a little
did.
bit about that.
I did. That was in my younger years. So when I originally went to college to pursue a law degree, and before I got out of college, the first time I had the opportunity to uh, work for another fella as a fishing guide, and so I would kind of work on weekends and do things like that, and so the profession kind of grabbed a hold of me a little bit, and I grew in it, and ultimately started a fishing guide service. Ended up with a TV show back when the Outdoor Channel was still a small deal, and then fished tournaments some for striped bass. So it was a good time, but it's a young man's game, and as I kind of graduated in my family and career, that was something that wasn't going to last forever.
So how in the heck did you make that transition from, being a professional fisherman to finding your way to the cemetery field? Did someone come and offer you a job? Did you seek it out actively or?
Well, I actually had 11 years in between the fishing profession and the cemetery world in full time ministry as a student pastor at a church in Louisville, one in Tullahoma, Tennessee, and another one in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. And so, full transparency, I went through a divorce, and in the Baptist world, there's no, you can't be a minister if you've been divorced. And so, I kind of had to find another start, another career. I ended up remarried and moved to Kentucky, where my wife's family lived. And I actually crossed paths with somebody who I had fished with before, who was a client. And they introduced me to the cemetery world because I was saying, "Hey, I'm looking for something." And I got started actually going door to door, knocking on doors, and getting in people's house at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. And with Sabre Management Company and Dave Sullivan, and kind of went from there.
Wow, what an interesting story. And I also have knocked on doors before. I remember a long time ago I tried starting a wedding magazine of all things and was knocking on doors and that didn't go so well. Um, Tell me a little bit about Broylman Memorial Group. Where are you based? I know you are mostly cemeteries, but you do have a couple funeral homes, I think. So why don't you just give me the bird's eye view, how many cemeteries you own, where they're located, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So I started about 2 years ago, started the company. And as I get into this, I'll give credit to a couple people for kind of my base in the industry. Dave Sullivan was a great mentor to me and gave me some great opportunities. Christine Hunsaker, most people will know, and she put a lot of trust in me and her brother, and gave me the opportunity to partner with them a little bit in their place in Atlanta. And so I owe a lot to Robert, Christine, and Dave Sullivan for the kind of foundation and the trust they put in me to enable me to get to know the industry a little better than maybe I would have otherwise. But once Christine, her company was acquired by another company, and I worked with them for a little bit, the new company, and then decided it was time to move on, and we started Broylman Memorial Group. And as I started the company, I knew that even though maybe I had the ability to do it on my own, in some regards, I felt like from the examples I had seen before that we would not grow to be as healthy as we could maybe have the potential to be if we didn't have some different perspectives at the top. And so I invited two friends of mine that have been friends for over 20 years, who do not have any background in the industry to come and partner alongside of me. And so Chris Rickman, Robert Doyle, and myself started the company, and we started with two cemeteries over in Virginia, two small cemeteries. Sat down at the owner's cabin and wrote out on a legal pad what our deal was going to be, and kind of went from there. And over the past couple of years, we've grown substantially, and we've now have 18 cemeteries. We did have a funeral home, but we actually divested of that funeral home a few months ago. And so now we have 18 cemeteries in Virginia, Arkansas, Tennessee, New Mexico, and California. We have some growth on the horizon. This year is going to be a big year for us. It started off well, but it's going to end really well. And we're really excited about kind of where we started and where we came. The name Broylman is Micah Brown. That's the bro. The oil is Robert Doyle, and the mun is Chris Rickman. So that's how Broylman came about.
You anticipated one of my questions there. I was wondering where you got the name. I think when you started it, it was a different name, right?
Yeah, we started under Legacy Memorial Group, and Michael Soper has Legacy Funeral Group, and he was gracious and just reached out and said, "Hey, don't know if you realize it or not, but these names are awful close." And we understood, and I got to talk to him a little bit personally and said, "Hey, we didn't intend anything out of line. We weren't trying to match the names, but we understand the confusion. So let's find something else." And I'll give my wife the credit for coming up with Broylman and how it all fit together.
Great. And you continue to grow. I mean, that's a pretty impressive growth you just outlined there. And just recently, you announced that you acquired three cemeteries from Heritage Family Group, including Covington Memorial Gardens in Tennessee, Helen Krieger Cemetery in Munford, Tennessee, and Granger Memorial Gardens in Rutledge, Tennessee. Tell us a little bit more about that acquisition. Why those cemeteries stuck out to you, what they add to your firm, just any details that you can share about how that all came about.
Well, our corporate headquarters is at our location in Clarksville, Tennessee. Me and Chris are both based in Tennessee. And so when the folks at Heritage reached out and said, "Hey, we're kind of leaning a little more away from the cemetery world, and we have heard that you're leaning into the cemetery world and wondered if you would have any interest," it immediately was something that we wanted to look into. And as we went and saw the locations, the heritage at the locations is rich. There's a lot of background. The cemeteries have all been there for a long, long time, and all were kept up very well and kind of pillars in their communities. And so it just seemed like it was a good fit. And as we got to talking with Heritage, and we worked a lot with Mark over at Heritage, and their integrity and the way they handle business gave us a lot of confidence about acquiring those locations and their partnership kind of as we make the transition. And so it made a lot of sense. And the more we looked into it and the more we got into it, Heritage and how they operate just gave us a lot of confidence in moving forward.
Now, as you know, there's just an incredible number of people in the profession aging out of the profession, looking to retire. They might not have children in the business. What is it you look for when you are evaluating maybe an acquisition opportunity? Because I'm sure there's folks out there that might be looking for a transition. Are you looking to expand your footprint in the states you're already in? Are you looking to break into particular states? What is it exactly that you sort of look at in terms of checking off some boxes where it might be a property you're interested in?
Yeah, well, one of the things we're looking for obviously is value. Is there value? Is there future value? Those kinds of things. We believe in our process, that we can implement our process at a location and be able to replicate that well and continue to have success like we have had in other locations. And I think the other thing is, or the main thing is, we have kind of three major focuses in our company. And a lot of people speak to things that are kind of their mission statement. We don't call this a mission statement, but we really do believe in these things. One is we believe in helping people grow personally and professionally. Now, I tell all of our folks all the time, the folks that are part of our company, them growing personally is them making more money. I mean, that's how they grow personally. The opportunity to grow professionally is to gain more responsibility and the ability to prove that you deserve those responsibilities and can handle those. And then the second thing is to become the premier cemetery in a community. And so we could all make a list of what makes a premier cemetery, and all of them would be fairly similar. And so we believe if we can successfully help people grow personally and professionally within the organization, and we can take a cemetery and help it become the premier cemetery choice of the community, that's something we ought to replicate and do more of. And so a particular state is not necessarily of interest. We don't have particular areas that we're looking to grow into. It's more about opportunity that comes along. And as we grow and expand, what works, uh, what we feel like can accomplish those things. Is this a place that we can grow into the premier choice for the community? And is it a place that allows us to give people more opportunities? And so if those things are answered, then the obvious business decisions come into play after that. And so we look to grow and expand more and more, as long as we can kind of keep within some of the visions that we had in the beginning.
Now, I find it interesting that you've really made it seems like a conscious choice to lean into the cemetery side of the death care profession. Um, and you even recently divested the funeral home that you did own. Are you against acquiring funeral homes, in particular maybe combination operations that come up for sale? Or are you really just wanting to focus on only cemeteries?
I'm not against acquiring a funeral home, and certainly combo opportunities that present themselves. We'll take a good look at. I've had a lot of people ask that question, and my answer is always the same. We feel confident in how we operate and grow cemeteries. However, we wouldn't pass up the opportunity to look at a good firm if something presented itself on the funeral side. And so I believe, if we ever do grow into the funeral part of the world, that'll be something that happens kind of organically. Um, and we're try to be patient about growth and expansion and not be overly aggressive so that things kind of fall into place rather than forcing issues. So to answer your question, I guess that was a long way around. We're certainly not opposed. We just feel confident about what we're doing, and if the opportunity presents itself, we'll certainly take a look.
As far as your company, have you had to seek outside investors or capital, or is it really just you and your two business partners that own the company and run everything, or is it private equity or some other form of capital that backs you as well?
Well, one of the things that we're most proud of is that our vision between the three of us when we began was to never go in debt and never borrow money of any kind. We don't even have company credit cards. We use debit cards for the company so that everything's paid for in advance. Um, between the three of us, the only money that we've invested personally is out of our pockets was the money to acquire the first two cemeteries over in Virginia. After that, it was a strong goal of ours to, if we grow, the profit and the cash that comes from an existing firm is the only thing that we're going to use to grow further. And so that does a couple things. It forces you to think a little bit differently. It forces you to make some decisions in some different ways and to be patient. And quite honestly, there's some good opportunities that we've passed up on because we wanted to stay true to that vision. But so far, and I say so far, but we have not, outside of that first $60,000, the growth that has come to the company has been organic. It has been off of what current firms have generated. And we have never borrowed money. We don't have any debt. And we would, I can't imagine there being a scenario where we would take debt on going forward as we do grow.
Now, is the cemetery business sort of similar to the funeral side of the business, where when you're looking to acquire a firm, it's typically some type of multiple of EBITDA? And what's happening to cemetery values and the competition, when firms come up? What are you seeing like in that M&A space? Is there a lot of competition, a lot of bidders when a cemetery comes up for sale? Is the value of cemeteries, sort of staying the same, or is it ticking up? I'm curious for any insights that you're seeing, just in the M&A side that you can share.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that is really that is a big part of the acquisition side is there are opportunities that come up that are a part of a brokerage firm or something like that, and those typically have several bidders. Sometimes through networking, there's opportunities that come up, and you can take advantage of something that doesn't have a lot of bidders. I do know that as you look at cemeteries that are performing like they should, um, then the multiples that you see in the M&A world are going to be substantial. And I think that will trend up over time. I believe there are some things that have caused it to trend down in the last year, 2 to 4 years, to some degree. But we know how things go. All of us do, and I think as things turn and shift back, and history repeats itself, you're going to see. I don't think the value of cemeteries has changed. I think to somewhat the demand or the appetite for acquiring them has leveled out just a little bit. And so, there's going to be times where new people come into the game and different things happen always. But, there's never going to be a replacement for the opening and closing that happens every single day without fail. There's never going to be a replacement for the person that everybody who's going to want some kind of memorialization. Everybody who gets buried, that is. And so as those things go, I think some of that's going to be constant. It'll just depend on right place, right time, how things come together. And again, for us, not forcing the issue.
Well, Micah Brown, from professional fisherman to the founder and CEO of Broylman Memorial Group, I want to thank you for joining me today. I really appreciated hearing your insights.
Glad to be here.